Just weeks after his last bittersweet goodbye to fans, Ozzy Osbourne is gone, and the world is reeling. What was meant to be a triumphant return to his hometown became an eerie final bow. But what followed wasn't just grief, it was a global reckoning with the legacy of a man who changed music forever. For a city like Birmingham, known more for its factories and football than for birthing legends, that final night meant everything. Just 2.5 weeks ago, fans packed into Villa Park, not knowing it would be their last chance to witness the Prince of Darkness live. Ozzy appeared fragile, seated, clearly impacted by years of health battles. Yet his spirit roared louder than ever. No one, not the fans, not the crew, expected it to be the end. But it was. And the silence left behind was deafening. News of Ozzy's death broke quietly at first, but spread like a shockwave. Disbelief gave way to heartbreak. Across Birmingham, tributes began almost instantly. Candles, pint glasses, handwritten notes, and bottles of Jack Daniels crowded the streets. People wept openly, others just stood in silence, overwhelmed. The Black Sabbath bench became a pilgrimage site. Someone gave Ozzy's silhouette a Sabbath hat, others draped it in an Aston Villa scarf. The scene was chaotic, messy, beautiful, just like the man they had come to honor. It wasn't just Birmingham that felt the sting. Notes poured in from Spain, from Bulgaria, from across continents. Gracias, Ozzy. Thank you for the music. One message simply read, "You raised me." And for many, that wasn't an exaggeration. Ozzy's music wasn't just sound, it was survival. For the broken-hearted, the misunderstood, the angry kids with nowhere to go, Ozzy was the voice screaming on their behalf. The landmarks transformed overnight. A mural near New Street Station, once a tribute to a concert, became a memorial. Fans lined the bridge with flowers, poems, and photos. One man, Paul Williams, stood silently among them. Then, wordlessly, he pulled out a hand-drawn portrait, a raw, imperfect sketch of Ozzy's face, and tucked it among the blooms. That sketch said more than words ever could. It was grief, gratitude, and goodbye, all in one. Even the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra paid tribute. Beneath the blinking departure boards of the station, they played the haunting opening track from Sabbath's debut album, Black Sabbath, as echoes of doom-laden chords filled the air. It wasn't just a song, it was a eulogy. Inside the Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery, an exhibition that had opened just weeks prior now stood as a shrine. A black-and-white photo of Ozzy clutching a cross overlooked a rapidly growing crowd. A book of condolence sat nearby, pages already full. One man wrote, "Ozzy's making his way through the hole in the sky," a reference to a deep cut from 1975, and a fitting line for a final journey. But what Ozzy gave wasn't just music, it was identity. Fans who never fit in suddenly had a leader, a figurehead who made weirdness feel like power. Tamara Jenna, 32, stood in the crowd and said it plainly. He made Birmingham proud. He wasn't polished, he was real. Across generations, that authenticity never wavered. From old-school Sabbath heads to new-wave metal fans, everyone had a story. One museum volunteer, Jonty Carter, remembered being just 12 years old when he was snuck into a Birmingham pub to see Sabbath play for the first time. He didn't know then that he was watching history, but he felt it, and that feeling stayed with him for life. Even younger fans, kids who weren't born when Ozzy first howled into a microphone, felt the weight of the moment. Kelly Pierce brought her children to the exhibition, saying he never changed. Even when he went to America, he was still a Brummie. She laughed, remembering his famously foul-mouthed charm, a trait familiar to anyone from Aston. "He could have been one of your uncles," she said. "He was just so down to earth." That earthiness is what made Ozzy larger than life. He didn't build a wall between himself and his fans. He tore it down. Despite being one of the biggest names in rock history, he never stopped sounding like the scrappy kid from Birmingham who just wanted to make noise. And what noise it was. Black Sabbath didn't just play music, they forged a sound. Something raw, industrial, and unapologetically dork. They pulled from Tolkien, horror, science fiction, even whispers of occult imagery. But they didn't do it for shock value. They did it because it was honest. In a world full of flower power and psychedelic dreamscapes, Sabbath was a punch in the gut. They weren't hippies. They weren't prog rockers. They were something entirely new, something no one saw coming. As one fan put it, they took their industrial heritage and turned it into art. It was gritty, it was weird, and it worked. Sabbath didn't ask for permission. They made space for themselves. And Ozzy, with his trembling voice and chaotic energy, stood at the center of it all. And then there's the fact that Ozzy's final wish, to end where it all began, actually came true. Despite battling Parkinson's, spinal issues, and a string of surgeries, he made it back. He sat on stage, he looked out at a sea of fans, and he gave them one last memory. That performance at Villa Park wasn't just a show. It was a homecoming, a full-circle moment that now feels more like destiny than coincidence. For a man who once bit the head off a bat and shocked the world more times than anyone can count, Ozzy's final act was one of quiet power. No theatrics, no outrageous stunts, just a man, his music, and a crowd that loved him. And now, that man is gone. But what remains is bigger than fame, bigger than shock value. Ozzy Osbourne left behind a legacy that reshaped an entire genre, gave voice to the voiceless, and taught a generation of misfits that darkness could be beautiful. In the end, Ozzy Osbourne did what few ever could. He didn't just make music, he made history. And now, his silence is louder than ever.